This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, The Truth, Bonus Episode 2, Part 1. When we left off, True had finally asked Big Wood the $1,000,000 question, and he deflected. The only problem is he'd asked her a question of his own, and she deflected too. Somehow she managed to not realize that, though. When he left the safe house, he was fit to be tied. Thank God he was not driving himself. Otherwise, he would have ended up God knows where. And Q would have never found him. He was in a chauffeured car, though. So Q had no problem locating him at the St. James estate. When he caught up with him, Big Wood came clean. He told Q everything. And in doing so, Q was able to help him question some of the facts. There was something not quite right about how he ended up in bed with Amira in the first place. Big Wood could put him back. He was a big man. 10 shots of his drink of choice could not have resulted in him being so intoxicated that he took another woman down and couldn't recall it. He wasn't an alcoholic, but he could handle his liquor. He'd been drinking for a long time. And again, he had the weight to handle it. Something was rotten in Denmark, and Q was determined to get to the bottom of it. And he was starting with the fact that Amir and Amira's names were too damn similar. At the safe house, True had finally pulled herself together. She made that phone call to Manny and said, I asked him, he lied. It's up. Manny could tell that True wasn't in the mood for mediation, so he let it go. 6 days later, in Trinidad, at the round table, Manny pulled True aside, and he asked, what are your plans when you leave here? True said, I'm heading to Texas. Salema has a shindig that I need to attend. Manny said, and then you'll be ready? True said, yep. Manny said, I'm going to have to inform all of the heads. That includes Q. True said, if that's the case, then I'll tell them myself. Manny said, you don't have to do this, True. True said, yes, I do. That's the only way that I'm going to be able to get Q's silence. Manny said, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about you going off grid. True said, I have to. That's the only way that they gonna live. Then Manny called all of the heads in training into the room. He made everybody else stay outside, except True. When everyone was assembled, True said, I'm pregnant. The baby is Wood's. I know that for sure, because I haven't been with another man in years. And despite anything you may have heard, I was already pregnant before I started my assignment. Wood suspects, but he does not know. Q said, True, why would you keep that from that man? You know how True said, because Wood cheated on me with Wise's sister, Amira. I asked him. He did not tell me the truth. Tomorrow, she's going to tell me. She's going to try to embarrass me. She's going to use that information to intentionally hurt me. And when she does, I will have all rights to kill both of them. Does anyone have any objections? When nobody said anything, Q said, of course we do. But nobody in here is going to say a damn word because it ain't going to matter. Do you really want to turn these families upside down? True said, I don't, which is why I'm going to let them both live. Salema will keep her husband and Wood will keep his life. He'll just have to live with the regret. The Queen Mother said, oh, Lord. This means that the two of you have come up with something downright diabolical. That man gonna wish he was dead, ain't he? Salema said, yup. The Queen Mother said, Salema. True said, don't put this on her. Amira is taking advantage of an opportunity, and so am I. Wood has chosen silence, and I'm choosing me and my baby instead of revenge. Salema said, I think that's admirable. True said, all I'm asking. And then she looked at Q and said, is that you all let Wood choose for himself. He chose to cheat. He chose to keep it to himself. Let him choose to live with it. Catherine said, wait a minute. Did you say that Wise's sister's name is Amira? What are the chances? Who is her daddy? Because it ain't no way that Amir would pursue you, and a woman named Amira would pursue Wood. Salema said, who said anything about Amira pursuing Wood? How you know he didn't pursue her? When all eyes were on Catherine, she looked at Manny, and Manny said, Lorenzo hacked his phone. Amir had video of Wood and Amira. Video that you know Wood wouldn't have consented to, True. I told you that there was more to this than you knew. True said, and you told me you had my back. Manny said, and I do. I will support whatever you decide. But you gotta know that the same way that I won't tell Wood anything that isn't my business to tell, I deal with you and everyone else the same way. True took a deep breath and said, am I correct in assuming that we're not done with the Amir situation? Manny looked around the table and then he looked at Q. And Q said, no, True, we're not. True took another deep breath and asked, are you all handling it? Q said, I give you my word. It'll be handled. True said, well, give me your word that you won't disclose my secret and that you won't interfere. If Wood miraculously decides to come clean, it will not be the result of any of your interference. When everyone agreed, True said, one more thing. If he does not come clean, I'm gone. I need your word that you won't help him or give him permission to look for me, Q. Then Manny said, I will know where True is. I will know how she and the baby are doing. But this cannot leave this circle. This is bigger than Wood. Then everyone at the table agreed. When everyone was called in, the debrief was held. True and Sax ran down everything that they knew. And Catherine asked, how exactly do we know that everything Amir said was the truth? And Renni said, unfortunately, we can't guarantee that the answers to the last few questions were the truth. And True was shocked. She said, why not? Renni said, because he wasn't attached to the monitors. I can guarantee that that concoction forces the person who's been injected with it to tell the truth. I know exactly how long it takes to start working, but how long it works is dependent on a lot of factors. And it's one of the reasons why I hook my victims up to monitors. Their heart rate and blood pressure tell me a lot, not just if the medicine is having an adverse effect on them medically, but something like a lie detector. It tells me when their body's reacting to their answers. When the answers are the truth, everything is everything. But when they start lying, their heart rate and their breathing change. That's why I told you to make it fast, True. True said, I'm sorry. I had no idea. I had a one-track mind. This is on me. Manny said, don't worry about it, True. Believe me, we're still checking into some things. If he intended to set Wood and Saint up on that job in New York, then he had to have help. True said, what do you need me to do? Manny said, nothing. Your job is done. True said, well, I can. Manny said, your job is done. And you did a good job, True. Catherine said, yes, you did. And when you check your account, it will reflect that. Believe me, we are not upset in the least. As a matter of fact, I want you to teach Star everything you know. True said, no problem. Catherine said, and Renni, check your account too. Renni said, cha-ching. When the debrief was over, Big Wood made a beeline for True. He said, Lil Mama, I want to apologize for the way I handled things in Miami. I owe you information. She said, well, I'm ready to hear it. And then Big Wood handed her an envelope. When she opened it, inside were the DNA results for Tasha's two sons. Big Wood wasn't either of their fathers. True said, congratulations. Is that all the information that you have for me? Big Wood said, there's more, but I need to handle something else first, and I need your support. True just stared. This nigga had the audacity to be asking her for help with something? Big Wood said, when I leave here, I'm headed to New York. I need to sit down with my mother and my sisters and my father. I can't do that alone. Seeing the pain in Big Wood's eyes, True realized that she was going to have to set her own feelings aside and help her man through this. It was the least she could do, because the next day she was going to blow his whole world up. On the plane, Big Wood called his mother, his sisters, and his father. And when they arrived at Charlotte and Samuel's new house on the outskirts of Long Island, Big Wood, Zyla, and Zora went into a room to speak privately. And Miss Charlotte took True to the side. She said, do you have something that you want to tell me? True said, no. Miss Charlotte said, girl, I was born at night, but not last night. I know a pregnant nose and hips when I see 'em. True was flabbergasted. She said, Miss Charlotte, what are you talking about? Miss Charlotte said, first of all, I told you to call me Mom. And second of all, your stomach might still be flat, but them hips and that nose are both spreading. True laughed and said, Miss Charlotte, I promise, if Big Wood and I have an announcement to make, you'll be one of the first to know. Charlotte said, okay, True. When Wood and his sisters returned to the room, Zora was wiping away tears and Zyla was stoic. Wood was at the head and he said, Ma, I've scheduled a discussion with Big Dro. But before we go, my sisters and I need to talk to you. They all sat down in the family room and Wood took True's hand. Charlotte said, y'all making me nervous. Is somebody dying? Zyla said, no, Mommy. But it's time you know why Leroy did. Then Zyla told her mother what Leroy had done to her. And Miss Charlotte was in shambles. She said, he was the father of the baby you aborted? A month after Leroy's death, Charlotte discovered that her 13-year-old daughter was pregnant, and Zyla wasn't saying who the father was. Miss Charlotte was livid. Zyla was insistent that she didn't even know how she got pregnant, but she was not keeping it, and Charlotte was in agreement. Miss Charlotte was so apologetic, and Zyla insisted that it wasn't her mother's fault, just like it wasn't hers. And then it was Zora's turn. She told her mother what Leroy had done to her. Thankfully, he'd never touched her, but what he did was bad enough. And Miss Charlotte was barely able to keep herself together when it was Big Wood's turn. Like Zora, he hadn't been touched, but inappropriate photos had been taken of him, and they were videos. And then Wood told his mother what he did the night that Pops Andy and the Queen Mother went to see her at her job at the all-night diner. And Miss Charlotte was inconsolable. When she finally pulled herself together, she said, "First of all, I need to clarify some things. Leroy was not my boyfriend. I was never with any other man other than your father. Leroy was your father's associate. He was responsible for collecting the money that your father had on the streets and giving it to me. He helped me get the job at the diner because he said that all the money had run out, and he didn't have the power to press anybody who he believed still owed your father money. So we were on our own. Your Aunt Di was in the military, and your Uncle D was incarcerated. I didn't have anybody else. I didn't realize that I could have asked Bella and Andy to watch you kids. And Leroy offered to watch you all. Had I known what kind of sick stuff he was into, I would have never agreed. But he was one of your father's oldest friends. I had no reason not to trust him. And I thought that you kids knew that you could tell me anything. I'm not blaming you all. I understand. He threatened to kill me. You were kids, and I was all you had. I'm sure you thought that you needed to protect me, but it was my job to protect you all. Even after Andy and Bella told me that Leroy was dead, I still hadn't put two and two together. They didn't tell me that he died at your hands, Lil Dro. I mean, Wood. They told me you were in the car with him when he died, that my girls were home alone, and that they'd picked them up and taken them to their house, that you all being watched by Art and Tessa, and they offered to watch you all each night while I worked at the diner. When you all insisted that you were fine, I needed to believe that. And when Zyla came up pregnant, I never made that connection. Zyla said, "You had no reason to, Ma." Miss Charlotte said, "I hope I didn't treat you too poorly." That whole period is a blur in my mind. Zyla said, "No, you did what any mother would do. You wanted to know where your daughter had been, what she'd been doing, and with whom. As a mother, I would have the same questions if my 13-year-old daughter came up pregnant, and I would do the same thing you did." They all cried together, and Miss Charlotte thanked them all for grace. She said, "I don't know how you all managed not to be angry with me. I know I focus a lot on your brother because he's the youngest and my only son. But I've always felt guilty about the fact that he's in the life and he's the reason why we got out of the hood and we were eventually able to live so well. But knowing that my 8-year-old son took a life just makes me feel even worse." Wood said, "Ma, don't do that. As crazy as this sounds, God used it. I had no memory of why I took Leroy's life. Memory only came back to me a few weeks ago because Q needed me to remember to help Melissa." Then Wood dug in his pocket and handed his mother a medal. Miss Charlotte said, "What is this?" Wood said, "Every time you start feeling bad about the choices that I made in my life and how the choices you made influenced me, I want you to look at that medal. Your baby boy received that from the Vice President of the United States." And everyone was shocked and surprised and excited. Wood said, "Me remembering not only helped Melissa, she's out of treatment and back at school, by the way, but it also helped crack a international trafficking case, a case that the government had been working on for decades, a case that involved Leroy because of what he did to all of us and what I did to him. The families got involved. They developed some intel, and because that organization targeted Melissa, they were able to identify one of the leaders in the organization. Q and I worked with the feds, and we were able to interrupt their operations, returning thousands of children and vulnerable adults to their families and getting them the justice that they deserve." And everybody in the room was in tears, including True and Big Wood. Big Wood said, "So what we endured, Zyla and Zora, wasn't for nothing. But this is when the real work begins. Q and I aren't done with the work with that organization. But this family still has work to do too. We need professional help to deal with the impact of having our father in jail for our whole lives. The impact of what Leroy did to us. Every one of us has made choices in our lives as a result of what we endured at Leroy's hands. And because our father wasn't there to protect us. I, for one, have made some bad decisions out of fear. And then he looked at True and said, no matter how much it can be a turn on for some, I don't do intimate photos and videos. And just the idea of someone having them of me scares me to damn death. It's been my Achilles heel my entire career. I've taken lives because of it, and I've had my back against the wall once and done things I would have never done, solely to ensure that those images never made the light of day. You have no idea the fear, shame, guilt, and downright embarrassment that I'm still plagued with. And as much as I want to share that with you, and you deserve to know, it's too painful. And I gotta work through it first. This family discussion is the first step in that process. I need you to bear with me. And then, True understood, somewhat. The anger, frustration, disgust, and downright fear that she'd seen on Big Wood's face on those videos at that hotel in upstate New York made sense, especially coupled with what Manny had told True at the round table. Amira had video of Big Wood, and that's why he slept with her that following day. And Amira, being Wise's sister, is why he didn't offer. But that did not explain why he'd taken her down the night before. And she wasn't excusing it as a drunken rendezvous. Her first rendezvous with Big Wood, they'd both had way too much to drink too. And if you go back quite a few seasons ago, you'll hear all about that. But True was the only one who didn't have any memory of it. Big Wood remembered every moment. And he'd had way more to drink then. And since then, they'd had way more to drink together and remembered everything the next day. So there had to be more to it. True's mind was made up though. Big Wood had no business entertaining Amira at that bar. Had he remained on the phone and conversed with her, excused Amira or himself, and dined and drunk alone, he would have never ended up in his room with Amira in the first damn place. So whatever happened after that was on Wood. Then Big Wood said, we need to head out. When they got to Big Dro's, Big Wood took the lead again. He told his father that he knew that he had conspired with Tasha to interfere in his relationship with True. He told him that neither of Tasha's sons were his, and he had the DNA test to prove it. Now, he didn't give a damn whose idea it was, but the games had to stop. Big Wood said, for years, I've had animosity towards you, because you left us to fend for ourselves. And the man you left in charge to collect your money and make sure we was good took advantage of me and my sisters. Not only did he rob my mother, but he was the reason I became a killer. And I've been traumatized by that for my whole life. When Big Wood told Big Dro what Leroy had done, Big Dro immediately started blaming Charlotte. He said, you wasn't supposed to start screwing that nigga. And why in the hell would you leave my kids with him? Zyla said, okay, Daddy, you going too far. First of all, Mommy was not messing with Leroy. Second of all, Leroy was your damn fault. You told Mommy that she could trust him. It was your job to make sure that the person you left responsible was actually responsible. If you wasn't in jail in the first place, none of that would have happened. Leroy wouldn't have SA'd me and got me pregnant. I wouldn't have 3 kids right now with 3 different daddies. Zora wouldn't be damn near scared of men. I don't know if she a lesbian or what. Wood wouldn't be out here shooting women if they take pictures of him with his damn clothes off. Big Dro said, oh my God. So it's all my fault. Got it. Zora said, for the record, I am not a lesbian. And I'm not scared of men either. I'm just selective. Zyla said, girl, you still a virgin, ain't it? At this big age. Zora said, that is none of anybody's business, Zyla. Miss Charlotte said, that's commendable. Zyla said, not if it's the result of trauma, Ma. Zora said, well, Wood is a toxic protector. Wood said, a what? Zora said, a toxic protector. You're attracted to women who you think are broken, and you think that you can save them. You love to be the one who swoops in and saves the day. Zyla said, Captain, save a hoe ass nigga. True said, I'd have to agree with you there. Big Dro said, all right, fine. It's all my fault. But when the hell are y'all gonna forgive me? Big Wood said, you've been forgiven. But forgiveness does not require reconciliation. Miss Charlotte said, you'd have to actually be sorry. Take accountability and make amends like I have. Zyla said, Daddy, you and I are good. You know that. I just thought that it was important for you to know what happened to us all and how we all got here. Wood said, I need to know what kind of man you want to be. Do you want to be the man who takes accountability for the way that his actions impacted his children and his ex-wife? Are you going to ask for forgiveness and try to build a relationship with your children and grandchildren? Relationships that are mutually beneficial? Or are you going to continue to be the man who acts like his children and his ex-wife owe him something? Because a real man would wish his ex-wife well, pray that she finds and has the happiness that she deserves, even if it's not with him. A real man wouldn't resent her for finding love after holding him down for over 30 years and raising his 3 children alone. A real man, Big Dro cut Wood off and said, I get it, son. I apologize for everything that I did to all of y'all. I can't change the past, but I love you. I love all of y'all. You have no idea what it felt like to sit in a cell for 30 years, only seeing your wife and your kids on visitation days, then have your son refuse to see you. You don't know what it's like to watch life go on without you in it. You damn sure don't know what it's like to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's all your damn fault.
You love don't give a damn now. Only time you see your kids is through a FaceTime on the jet.